Hey everyone, welcome back to the Atavus Football Show. I'm back with you once again, along with my friend Scott Lawyer. Scotty, how you doing?
Jake, what's up, man? We got a lot to get into today, especially starting with my Niners last night making the splash move. So I'm excited for that, and also for us, we got to talk about. So let's get into it, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. We have a lot to talk about today, a lot in the news, especially in NFL over this past week, and some major news last night that we'll dive into. That's not even just about the Thursday night game. So, but more than that, our main topic for today is something a little more serious. Last week we talked something a little more fun about best college uniforms of all time. There's definitely stuff like that we like to do and have fun with it because we're football enthusiasts. But one of our big things here at Atavus that we like to make one of our mission, or part of our mission, is we talk about the power of sport a lot, and how at Atavus we really want to make the game better for players and coaches and make it safer, make tacklers more effective. But we want to just improve the game, and everyone at Atavus has played football or coached football at the highest levels, and the game itself has given us a lot, not only just from playing but also from into life in general. And so that's the kind of the effect that the power of sports has on us. And we definitely have made our mission over the last year to really start delving into that and seeing the ways that, at Atavus, we can make the game of football and sports and better in general and more enjoyable for people and, really improve the game that we love. So that's going to be our main topic for today that Scott and I will kind of share our stories on and how sports has impacted us each individually at the end. But like we said, let's start off with we're going to get right into the news this week, and we're going to start in college. Again, let's take a look. Another big weekend
Right.
this past weekend. Definitely had a few teams on byes, but a lot of upsets once again going on, with the biggest and most notably, obviously, Tennessee beats Alabama. That provides a huge shakeup to the potentially big implication of the college football playoff. But we see a lot of other upsets in there. Scott, take us through your few that you either few upsets or just games in general that you think are going to have an impact going forward.
Yeah. So, Jake, let's just talk about the big elephant in the room. I know a few weeks back we spoke about, Georgia and Alabama being at the top, and strength of schedule was really important. I talked a lot about that. And now we're seeing it. Georgia has a little bit of a lighter matchup this week. They blow out Vanderbilt, and that makes a statement, right? Now, Alabama playing Tennessee, who's rolling. They got an elite quarterback. They got that deep threat receiver playing good defense, well coached. And you see what happens. I mean, that game, they didn't have the backup quarterback at Alabama. Bryce Young was in there, and he had a pretty strong game. But that was really a battle to the end. Missed field goal by Alabama. You don't like to see that. But Tennessee, that quarterback Hooker was keeping them in that game with those deep shots. Also mobile. Kind of reminds me of almost like a Josh Allen / that Trey Lance type mold, where he's kind of bursting onto the scene, but he's playing against elite competition as SEC. But big body, can move, can extend plays, but also has a pretty strong arm and nice arm talent from what I'm seeing. So I think Hooker is going to be. He's already moving up the Heisman watch, but also I think up draft boards later on, he's going to be making a splash. But that game lived up to the hype. You saw Tennessee rush the field, break down the goalposts. They were loving life over there in Tennessee. So that was a big game I like to watch. I watched and I was enjoying that. And then how about USC losing to a Utah team on the road? Utah was at home. And they went for it. I believe 2-point conversion, big statement. And they did. The quarterback takes a nice little QB sneak up the middle, and USC couldn't finish it at the end. So that was a big one. That's going to kind of shake up the Pac-12 because Utah lost the previous week, right, Jake? So being able to knock off the juggernauts and USC and Lincoln Riley, that's going to kind of shake up the Pac-12 a little bit, man.
Yeah, and I think keep in mind moving forward, just because you mentioned it, is the Pac-12, the way they scheduled their or the format for their conference championship this year is purely based on win percentage versus the divisions like the other ones are in the past. So, a single loss now could impact, as you have Utah now rolling and UCLA rolling and Oregon starting to roll again. That could be make a big impact later on.
Yeah. And then you have Michigan taking care of Penn State handily. Harbaugh was not messing around, ran the ball, play physical defense, and that was a pretty big time win against a ranked Penn State team.
Yeah.
And then TCU is just rolling undefeated. They got that big receiver out there, like 6'5", 6'4", catching the ball deep, making big plays. And I like that a lot. And then keep going down to the right-hand side. We got Texas was able to pull it out against Iowa State. Great coach team, well-coached team, and a couple of mistakes on their end at the end. Fumble, I believe, by the quarterback. Texas was able to hold off with a really good win for them. And then James Madison, we talked about it last week, but Georgia Southern is Clay Helton, I believe, is the head coach over there. So he was formerly at USC, had some success there, but I mean, you saw what happened. That was a pretty high. I just think James Madison had a couple turnovers in the end that kind of they weren't able to overcome. But a lot of good football being played this last Saturday, Jake. So we'll see how it shakes up the top 25.
No, it is shaping up to be good. I have a question for you. I had a buddy of mine pose this question to me: Is there stuff on social media and whatnot that could there be? I don't think so. Could there be a possibility where we see 4 teams from the SEC make the college football playoff if everything works out, and let's say we ultimately still have an Alabama Georgia semifinal, or Alabama's one loss could be to Tennessee, Georgia's one loss could be to Bama. If Ole Miss is in there and their one loss is to one of those top teams as well, where everyone has one loss only to those top 5 teams almost. Do you see that as a possibility? I don't, personally. I think it's hard to ignore teams like Ohio State or Michigan, whoever comes out of the Big Ten, and if Clemson keeps rolling them out of the ACC. But I think there is an argument to be made, potentially.
Yeah, I think it's a strong argument, but yeah, I'm on the side with you that I just don't think it will happen. Just given, Ole Miss, they have to still prove that they can win late in November and early in December, those bigger games that really will tip the scale. But yeah, I think you might have even Tennessee barely squeaking in there in that top 4, top 5. But I would say, yeah, Georgia, Alabama will probably be there. And it will be hard to completely dismiss Ohio State, or maybe USC bounces back up with some strong performances. But yeah, we'll definitely something to look out for and monitor over the next few weeks, Jake.
Yeah, no, for sure. Let's take a look at the new rankings for this week. Obviously, the shakeup is going to be Alabama moving to 6, Tennessee all the way up to 3. You see Michigan and Clemson switching positions once again. Ole Miss at 7, TCU bumps up all the way to 8, and UCLA and Oregon each bump up a spot to close out the top 10. Oklahoma State, USC after their losses, only moving back a few spots, which I guess makes sense since they were, losses to ranked teams. But some other notable ones getting in, North Carolina and Tulane, previously not ranked, moving their way into the top 25 as well on that right side. But everyone's slowly moving up from last week, a few spots here and there. Any major takeaways you see from this field?
Yeah, nothing too major, Jake. I just think that Pac-12 is really going to be the kind of the caviar, like the shakeup when it comes to this top 25, because you see some really strong teams, and we just don't know how Washington's going to finish. But I think they're going to get it together on defense, get their tackling shirt up here. But their offense is putting up a lot of points at Washington, so I think you could potentially see about 4 to 5 Pac-12 teams by the end of this. But yeah, I think our usual top 4, top 5, they're going to be there. I think Michigan, they made a strong statement. Clemson, they got the quarterback going. DJ looking good with the big arm. He's in shape. So yeah, it's hard to doubt, to kind of make any strong assumptions right now. But yeah, man, it's gonna be an interesting November and December over here for our top 25.
Mm-hmm. Let's get into a few news pieces out of the college football front. First, starting with the Heisman watch, now that we're halfway, basically, or a little more than halfway through the season, have some of the updated odds on the potential Heisman candidates coming out of this season, with C.J. Stroud still leading the pack, but Hooker moving up after his last, his stellar starts to the season, especially after that performance last week. Caleb Williams at 3. You got Corum at 4, and then Bryce Young still at that 5 spot. And these are all the Vegas odds right now. If you had to pick one, who do you think is the Heisman front runner in your personal opinion right now?
Oh man, it's a tough one, man. I'm gonna focus on the top 2 right here, and it really is between them. But I'm honestly going to go, by the end of this, I think it's going to be Hooker. Just based on what you look, let's talk about what you look for when it comes to a Heisman candidate. Obviously, the numbers, the record, all are important. But I know a lot of things that they look for is signature wins and performances. And I think last week, Hooker was able to have one of the biggest in recent memory in terms of like strong performances against a very, very legit team in Alabama. So I think that will really bode well for him. But we'll see. I think Stroud, he obviously has the weapons. He has a good system behind him. But I think Hooker can take over this in the next coming weeks and really make a strong push, depending on how he finishes. But I like Hooker taking this Heisman, man.
Nope, I agree with you. I think it's going to be those two guys top two the rest of the way. I see a hard time for the remaining three to really make a push just based on how they performed so far and
injuries too as well.
Injuries, missed time, stuff like that. But I'd probably have to agree with you. I think if Tennessee and Hooker continue on this route that they're on, with the significant wins, the strength of schedule, and the facing, it's going to be hard not for him to take it, in my opinion, if he keeps this up. Obviously, Stroud's putting up a heck of a year as well. So,
right.
Yeah, but interesting these next few weeks. Let's see if Tennessee and Hooker can make sure to stay strong, don't have any kind of hangover of the Alabama win.
That'll be big. That's a good point.
Also in the news this week, the College Football Playoff Committee is meeting once again to discuss when the expansion will actually take place. Initially, they said 2026. There have been rumors that it could be as soon as 2024, maybe 2025. So we'll wait to see what comes out of that once the information gets released. But I think every college football fan is hoping for the sooner the better. But just something to keep our eyes on as we move forward. The last piece, news story that's kind of been coming out, is coming a little more of a trend now. We see with the whole NIL. We've talked about this in previous episodes, how the NIL is definitely going to affect and already has affected college football in a major way. Right. It was reported this week that an unnamed player from Utah, from an unnamed school NIL collective, was offered $1 million to transfer from an NIL collective from another school. And this is just one case. I think it's pointed out because it was $1 million offer. But as you read more into this, you find out that this is happening now more and more across the country, as these NIL collectives are these basically booster clubs and other people that have been associated or, in some way with the university, not directly, but we're a part of it and are engaged in this way. And so no rules are violated right now, right? Because it's NIL and it's not the schools offering money. But it is an interesting thing to see that even like during the season now, people are being offered. It's almost like free agency offering you a contract or, offering you this money and these deals to transfer. So it's a very unique and weird space to even see this come up now, this part of the year. Last week or the week before, we talked about how kids are just, students or student athletes are thinking about just transferring, redshirting and transferring, which for playing time and stuff like that, which understand, get it, but this is a whole nother level of when money becomes involved, and it's hard. I'm sure it'd be hard not to take that money, or at least consider it. But so far, no one has actually transferred. In the case of this Utah player, didn't take the offer, didn't take the money, stays at Utah. So at least we're seeing that money is not 100% driving all these decisions that these athletes are making in terms of transferring in schools to go to.
Yeah, that's wild, Jack. I mean, like you mentioned, money is a driving force in a lot of things, and it's a whole different dynamic when you're talking about, okay, I'm going to transfer because I want more opportunity, I want more playing time, all that stuff. But when it comes to offers like this, it's really going to shake up the college football scene even more, because there's a lot of money we're talking about, right? And dealing with maybe an 18-year-old to 20-year-old in that range, where that could be life-changing. So, hopefully they have a good supporting cast around them where they can make educated decisions and put themselves in a position to, get everything from the experience, right? Playing, educational, but also financial as well, because they do deserve that. But just want to make sure it's the right decision for them in the end. So hopefully they have the right camp around them.
Yep. Yeah, we'll see how this stuff works out going forward. This become more of a trend as we go. Let's look to this weekend. Again, a number of teams. It seems like this middle part of the year is when these buys are taking place. Last week we had a few.
Yeah.
This week, a couple other notable ones as well with Georgia, Michigan, USC, Utah, a couple more in there as well. So, but of the games we do have, which of these to you sticks out as potential? Once again, could we have another big weekend of impactful games on the college football playoff?
Definitely Oregon versus UCLA. That's going to be big time. That's going to really, it's going to be an eye-opening to the Pac-12 who's really legit. But I think UCLA, they're legit contenders right there. Also, I'm going to be looking at that Ole Miss LSU. That should be a pretty good matchup. See if LSU can kind of ride the wave and continue this with Kiffin over there. And then going to the right-hand side, Texas, Oklahoma State. I mean, Oklahoma State's offense is no joke. They got a veteran quarterback, good running back, receivers, great defense. Defensive backs are playing high levels. So I can see them presenting Texas with a lot of issues from a defensive perspective. I know Ewers is having a good year coming back from injury, but you see them kind of, with pressure and also kind of dynamic and unique defensive schemes like Gundy can run over there. I think it's going to be a challenge for them, but should definitely still be a really competitive game. So I'll be excited for that one. And then also, who else we got? Tulane, Memphis. That would be a good one as well. It's always typically
a lot of implications for the AAC, which is the next main conference right outside the Power Five.
Yes, exactly.
The one I'm interested in taking a look at is the Clemson-Syracuse game. I think Clemson's faced a couple of these teams within their conference, like NC State earlier in the year, that were rolling and moving up the ranks, and they took care of business. Syracuse is in that same position of, they're continuing to roll, beat these teams, and move up in the rankings. So now, a weekend to prove themselves, I think, to see if they're legit, or if, on the other hand, can Clemson just take care of business and prove that they belong to be in the college football playoff at the end of the year. So I think that's one to keep our eyes on as well. So maybe a potential upset alert.
Yeah, it's gonna be a wild one, man.
So that's gonna round out college this college weekend for us. Let's take it to where a lot of the news in the football realm has happened this week, and that's the NFL as we go inside the league. But first, let's recap last weekend again with the scores. And so we've got a number of games. Obviously, the Thursday night game a week ago, not living up to expectations as we almost came accustomed to over the weeks, and finally, at least last night, got a better game. But let's take a look at some of the other notable games. You got the Jets improving to 4-2 over the Packers.
Yeah.
The Giants improved to 5-1, and so now you've got and the Bills get a redemption win over the Chiefs. So all those teams out of the state of New York, I believe, are now 14-4 combined.
Wow.
So something's cooking out there, and it's nice to see the teams like the Jets and Giants actually get back where they can be with their talent. Looking at some of the other games, Bengals have a big game against the Saints. Vikings improved to 5-1. Big Cowboys and Eagles. Eagles take care of business. That was a highly anticipated game last week. And then that Monday night game coming down to the wire between the Broncos and Chargers. And Russ not quite still living up to expectations. And unfortunately, I lost my fantasy game because Herbert only got me 8 points. And even though he threw the ball 57 times, not quite the performance we thought we'd see. But yeah, I mean, for me, look at the Seahawks game and take care of business with the Cardinals. I think finally our defense is starting to figure things out. We've got Woolen on the outside, who's now being talked about as a candidate for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
He leads the league in turnovers now with 4 picks and 2 fumble recoveries. So finally starting to click. I know that the Cardinals were struggling. We're a struggling team, but it's nice to carry that momentum from that game as we face the Chargers next week. But our offense is starting to click again. Kenneth Walker filling in for Penny, getting his first start. I don't think we missed a beat on the running game as he had almost nearly 100 yards on a score once again. So what were your biggest takeaways from this weekend? And you talk about your Niners as well.
Yeah, I mean, a couple upsets. Yeah, starting with a few upsets, starting with my Niners. I mean, historically, though, the Falcons have always given the Niners fits for some reason. We just could not get anything going on offense. We took a couple deep shots that we couldn't capitalize on, a couple drops, but also turnovers didn't help us, and a lot of injuries for my Niners, which has been a theme recently, but hopefully we can get some guys back heading into a big matchup with Kansas City. Jets, like you mentioned, that defense under Saleh is playing at an elite level, a high level. Because you got guys like Sauce Gardner, who we've broken down a bunch in the past, where he's looking like a real cornerback number one, playing great technique, tackling well, turning the ball over. So and they got the guy up front, Williams, I believe. So they're just playing good football. And in offense, they're just getting those running backs involved. Hall and Carter, I believe. Zach Wilson's playing good, complimentary, don't turn the ball over too much. So guy, Sean Hopper, big Jets fan. And then these Vikings are rolling right now with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson looking real good. Bengals are getting back on the board, getting that connection with Jamar Chase and Burrow, so that was good to see. And then the Giants, that was just an interesting game. I mean, Ravens were playing pretty well the whole game, but it's the late turnovers by Lamar. Defense was some penalties, let Giants come back in there, and Saquon, has a great game and caps it off with a big run to give them the lead. And yeah, just turnovers were big for the Ravens there. Steelers beating the Buccaneers. You saw Tom getting kind of
heated on the sidelines with his line.
Right. He did. So we'll see how that all transpires. And then the Eagles took care of business. Bills did their thing against Mahomes, had another turnover late in the game that he could have maybe, extended the play, but got that blitz and kind of, made a rash decision and threw the ball to the other team. So, yeah, we'll see how the Chiefs bounce back. They're going to be playing my Niners, so it should be a big matchup Sunday afternoon.
Yep. Well, it'll be interesting to see how this all turns out next week. Injury news for this week looks like a little bit less in terms of notable injuries, which is good to see. Quickly to run through it, Dak Prescott going to make his return this week, it sounds like, coming back off that thumb injury. You got Russell now, coming off, he has a shoulder. Now he has a hamstring that could be significant. So I think he's probable to play, it sounds like, but definitely could limit him. Carson Wentz, finger injury, is going to have surgery out multiple weeks now. So Heineke will step in and replace him for the next month or so. Kenny Pickett probably going to play, but obviously taken out last week with that concussion with the new protocols in place, but it sounds like he's probable. James Conner missed last night with ribs once again. So, but they're finding ways with that running back group that they do have to make it work. Same, with the Cardinals, Marquise Brown after last week. Foot injury at the end of the game. He'll be out for indefinitely, probably at least 4 to 6 weeks, I would imagine. Darren Waller is likely out this week, again with that hamstring injury kind of lingering. Not great to see hamstrings; those are always tough to come back from. And then Casey Hayward goes to IR for the Falcons, and that's going to hurt him on the secondary front because kind of struggling right now back there. And so an injury on that secondary isn't going to help. But again, good to see that the list is kind of going down, but there are still some notable ones that we have on our list. Now, as we get into the news, we're going to start off with more of a league overview at a high level before we get into some more player news. But this week, they hosted the fall and winter meetings for the NFL owners, and a little bit of controversy between Irsay and Snyder has come out where Snyder claims to have some dirt on some owners throughout the league. Irsay kind of came out publicly, called him out at the meeting, saying he believes there's cause and could be voted out as owner, removed as owner by the rest of the NFL owners as we move forward. And so some people thought that was a little uncalled for. Irsay, from time to time, known to speak out his mind, and so just something kind of I think that there's been a lot of controversy around Snyder over the last year or so, and kind of one thing after the next. But again, let's see let things play out, see if there's merit to all these investigations going on and rumors first before we make any claims. But I think there's something interesting that we could see over the next year or so play out if any of this comes to light. Also at the meetings, Jerry Jones, Robert Kraft get into a little heated discussion, it sounds like, to say the least. They voted on Roger Goodell's new contract extension moving forward. All owners except Jerry Jones voted for it. He was the only one opposed. Basically wanted to make it more incentive-based versus a straight salary type of contract. And over that debate, sounds like Jerry Jones and Kraft got a little bit into heated discussion, so you can go look online to see exactly what may have been said. But it's interesting. I mean, Jerry Jones it doesn't surprise me. I don't think that Jerry Jones was one that opposes it, and I don't know if I necessarily disagree with him either on maybe how the contract should be structured. It's performance and incentive based versus a straight salary. So just some interesting things to notice. And you take anything away from these two stories from the league meetings at all?
It's a lot of playing with fire is what I'm seeing. There's some those are some powerful people in these rooms. So definitely, with the Snyder couple weeks, you don't want to necessarily open up a Pandora's box, right? Because it can really unfold a lot of things that are not right with the league, which is sometimes could be good as well. We don't know, but I think like I said, it's playing with fire, and there's going to be some strong implications that come from that. And yeah, Jerry Jones, he's known to be very vocal in his thoughts. So don't really not a surprise, Jake, but yeah, I do see where he's coming from too. He's speaking up, and we'll see. I don't think there'll be too much to be made of that one, but something to monitor though.
Yeah. Other news, we're going to focus on the Titans here in the next two pieces, but sounds like the Titans are able to come to agreement with the city and the mayor of Tennessee to build a new stadium in the coming future. Looks like they're shooting for 2026, and it's going to be basically built right next to the current stadium they have there. But the biggest feature is it sounds like it's going to be an enclosed stadium. So, this has always been a grass field out on an open stadium out in Tennessee, and sounds like they make the switch to that enclosed. So, again, I'm sure production will start in the next couple of years with the end goal and end date of being 2026. But it's always good to see these things kind of get worked out in the city. Right. So, a lot of these teams moving in the past with the Rams and Chargers and things like that come down to the stadium and the teams not being happy with the city putting up enough money to renovate or put a new stadium in the city, and teams move out of spite or just for better opportunities. So good to see that this got worked out and keep the Titans in Tennessee for now, for the foreseeable future. So the other notable piece with the Titans is Delaney Walker is finally officially retiring as a Titan. Had a 14-year career with both your Niners and the Titans. I remember this guy was a beast when he played. He was just caught everything, was always reliable, right? Played 14 years at a high level, not just, didn't just have the last couple years where he tried to just finish it out. He was, heavily involved in the offense all the way out through his career. But I remember him mostly from his Tennessee days. I'm sure, Scott, you can speak to his Niners days. And, he played half his career almost in San Francisco. So
yeah, I remember he was very integral part in the Harbaugh era, where he was able to kind of create that really explosive offense with like Alex Smith, but also Kaepernick. And really, when I was in high school, him and Vernon Davis, that tandem really motivated me to play tight end. Out of all the positions, I wanted to play tight end because of those guys growing up. And, so that was really have a lot of respect for Delaney, his career. And I thought he was a hell of a player for both the Titans and the Niners. So congratulations. And, hats off to him.
Yep, hats off. Congratulations to him. Great career. And other player news, we'll move forward. Last night, Hopkins makes his debut in a big way. Came up big for you, I know that. But obviously coming off that 6-game suspension, desperately needed, especially what happened after last week when they lose Brown. Make a couple trades we'll get into in a second, bringing some people in. So really needed that number one guy back. And I think we obviously saw that offense started to click when he was in there. I think he had a 10, 11 catches over 100 yards. So finally that offense getting back to where I think everyone thought it could be.
Yeah, definitely unlocked the offense. You saw that was Kyler's safety blanket last night. It took a couple series for them to get in sync. You saw some of the communication errors early on, but that's to be expected. And I think they kind of hit stride around the second quarter. They didn't look back going into that game. So I think that was a big piece, having Hopkins back. And for that offense that was kind of struggling, I love him and the other additions that they added on that we'll talk about here real shortly.
Yeah, no, I still think he's one of the best receivers in the game from a purely talent perspective and what he can do and impact the game. So Kyler having his number one guy back is going to be huge for them to get that offense rolling. We got a few more trade news items coming up. First, starting with Elijah Moore, has requested a trade from the Jets. Sounds like, according to Robert Saleh, doesn't look like they're going to trade him by the deadline in a couple weeks. Doesn't sound like he's going to play this weekend either, over this controversy. So he's upset with kind of his reduced role and usage in this offense this year. I don't kind of forget what his stats were this year. Obviously last year,
He was
huge impact, huge involvement with the offense, and should be almost their number one weapon this year, at least on the outside. But reduced role 1 year later, things can change. So I mean, what do you make of this, or where would you see any potential fits for him?
Yeah, I mean, they always say winning cures all, but not in this case. I think he's actually just, receivers. I'm not going to say they're divas, but based on his role that he had last year, you would think that, yes, he would be very prominent in this offense, be able to, good safety blanket for Zach Wilson, but they're just not using them. They're really relying on the running game, but also the running backs as receivers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Breece Hall is having a great year so far. They have a couple other weapons on offense, but yeah, I mean, they're just not targeting him, not utilizing him. I think he's a really explosive player. So some good fits I would see is probably you maybe might look at like a Tampa Bay, for example, who's known to get a bunch of receivers, but they kind of could use some help probably with like someone in the slot. I know, they got Godwin, but who else? Let's think the Browns as well could be a big. I think the Browns could benefit.
Another guy with Cooper out there.
Cooper, they have the good running back, so they need someone else who's a little bit more explosive. And then let's think of another team. How about the Packers, right? The Packers would be a good fit as well. So you never know. I think they pretty much have a similar offensive scheme as well from the Packers and the kind of that Shanahan kind of McDaniels type system. So it could fit there as well. Those are three teams I would kind of see making a play for more.
Yeah, no, I agree with those picks as well. Probably the first two more so in the Packers. I think they really need that prominent number one. And he's an explosive player. I'm not sure if that's exactly what they're needing right now. But those first two teams, I can easily see that happening. So we'll see if words are words. Money probably talks more than anything else, money and draft picks. So over the next 2 weeks, let's kind of monitor this and see if anything comes of it. But final piece of the trade news come out of Carolina, the first being last week with, starting last weekend with his outburst, Robbie Anderson with the coaching staff, interim coach sends him to the locker room. A few days later, he's in Arizona. And, whether that was after we heard rumors of other players and after what we saw last night, is this accumulation of, is it just that or is it accumulation of that and starting to unload salaries and contracts for years? And so it works out for Arizona. They lose Marquise Brown last week for 1 to 2 months, and so you get Hopkins back, you get Anderson to help supplement the rest of that lineup to have two strong receivers on the outside. So interesting there. I see it as accumulation of both. I see it as them getting rid of a player contract. But I think last week it was just like the tipping point of making it easier for them to do so almost. Yeah,
I think, definitely both. You see what the Panthers were doing, trying to offload those bigger contracts. But also, it's just hard to kind of get over that after you saw, like, from an optics perspective on the sideline. I'm sure both parties were motivated to get a move done. And you saw, I think, within 24 hours, he was over in Arizona. So they didn't waste any time with that.
And let's get to the final piece of news on the trade front. And Scott, I'll let you.
What is this one? Oh, okay, this one.
This one.
Yeah.
As much as this pains me to see this happen, from a Seahawks perspective, it has happened. McCaffrey to the Niners last night for 2023. I believe it's a second, third, and fourth round draft picks, and then a fifth round draft pick in 24. The Panthers received. Excuse me. I'll just let you take this. This obviously affects your Niners. So, Yeah. How does this work? How do you see it?
I think this is big, man. I mean, just think about who they had to outbid for this. I think the Rams were one of the final suitors, but the Bills, the Chiefs were in the mix, and you just can't lose out to those guys. But historically, they've always pushed all the chips to the middle and said, "Let's go all in to win a Super Bowl." And I think the Niners' window is kind of right now, so it makes sense. Historically, they have not, been big spenders when it comes to the trade market. I think Emmanuel Sanders few years back was a big one, but still not it wasn't no one was like getting super excited about, but he was very effective in that role and getting them to the Super Bowl, that veteran. This is a little bit different with McCaffrey because he's still, Jake, he's pretty much in his prime when it comes to running back years, right? He's still in that prime, 26. But I think he has a lot of really good football left, and his contract is favorable for the Niners. But just think about all the weapons they have now, and from both perspectives, you have Christian McCaffrey that's going to be able to take some of that load off. He's going to reap the benefits of a good offensive line or a solid offensive line, but more importantly, play calling and weapons around him that can take the pressure off him and put him in space more, but also give him some more free lanes. I can really see him utilizing him as more of a receiver than a running threat anyway, because you still have Jeff Wilson, and you also have Elijah Mitchell, who's going to come back and be a pretty strong threat. I think that could be a really strong 1-2 punch, right? Elijah Mitchell and McCaffrey in the future. And also, what it does too is it just makes more unpredictability for Shanahan that's kind of struggled in putting up points, particularly in the second half of games. McCaffrey makes his job a lot more easier. He gets back to the Bay Area where he played at Stanford, and I think it's a win-win for both teams. So I'm really excited. It was a big splash play, and I definitely took a shot, took a drink to this one because I was excited. It was some good news for me. So
Yeah, no, I think overall, from the scheme of things, from a just purely football perspective, it's a great move because I think
right.
that Shanahan offense utilizes running backs very well, especially in the type of role that type of player McCaffrey is, in both a runner and a pass catcher. I do wonder, what is this? And you mentioned their names. You got Wilson and Mitchell back there. But if you bring in a guy who's on contract, it looks like through 2025, right, for a significant amount of money, I'm sure they're going to maybe try and restructure his deal. But you bring in a guy like this, do you really see them utilizing Mitchell and Wilson as in the past they've had 2 to 3 running back by committee, a lot of those guys on rookie deals or smaller 1 to 2 year deals and stuff like that. Do you see those guys? Do you see the offense working in that way in general, or is he now year 3 down back and bringing a guy every now and then for rest?
Just based on history, I would say a little bit of both, Jake. I think they're going to try to take the load off of McCaffrey and slowly ease him back into the system, because you do have still Jeff Wilson, who's a reliable back. He's not like, he's just had a solid career. I think he can definitely be a kind of that good 1-2 punch for now. And then Elijah Mitchell's still very young, but he's been injured a bunch. So, looking at someone, McCaffrey has that same issue before, but you would like to think that with this system and everything, and they can help kind of change that and with a fresh start and everything. I think we're on the mends with that. But yeah, it's definitely something to monitor. But Shanahan, I would say, has never had a running back like this during his time in San Francisco. Maybe Devontae Freeman back in Atlanta was like his best running back he's probably had. But he's known for kind of just doing it by committee and just saying we'll take any guy off the street and just roll with them. But now you have a real bell cow / Swiss Army knife, however they want to use him. I think this is a big. I like this move a lot. It shakes it up and it makes for really exciting football for a Niner fan.
Yep, no, definitely puts them in that win now discussion, I think, for sure, especially once they get some of those guys back off injury. Let's take a look then real quick at this upcoming weekend of games. Saints and Cardinals last night finally had a few touchdowns scored in those Thursday night games. Obviously Jameis sat out once again, but fairly competitive at times. But good to see a game like that on Thursday night once again. Looking at the remainder of the games, we've got Browns and Ravens. Falcons and Bengals could be an interesting one. Falcons are kind of starting to figure out who they are and being competitive. Let's see who else we got here. Jets and Broncos. Again, Broncos kind of struggling, and Jets on a roll right now. I think this is another good opportunity just for them to get another win. Going to be a more difficult defense, but Broncos offense is struggling against that Jets defense right now. It's going to be hard to do anything against. And then we'll hit on our teams here in a second, but I think the last notable one is maybe Steelers and Dolphins. Tua coming back, making his debut again after the concussions. Steelers getting a big win last week, so this could be a more competitive matchup than I think people were saying. But for me, Seahawks Chargers, I think we have a shot once again. Chargers, what are they, 4-1 now, 5-1, whatever they are, or 4-2. Strong team, strong offense, strong defense potentially, but at times they do have they kind of falter at times and don't perform to their potential always. So I think it's one of their weaknesses, and I think if we can catch them in one of those, then we have a shot of pulling it out. So if we just keep performing like we were and how our defense performed last week, I think we have a good shot against that team. But big matchup for you guys this week against a KC team coming off a loss. How do you see that shaping up?
It'll be big. I think historically the Niners have always had a really good bounce back, particularly Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not going to place all the blame on him. I think there was some drops that definitely impacted the game there. He had a couple touchdown throws, but yeah, just overall did not play well enough on both mainly on defense, actually. I know we had a bunch of guys missing, but hopefully we get some pieces back. Trent Williams is looking like he's about to play. Nick Bosa should be in there. We'll have to see how Jimmy Ward and Charvarius Ward, both of them kind of play out. But, I think giving some pieces back, and then maybe McCaffrey, you throw in a little package for him around the goal line, maybe like 5 to 7 plays that he can just quickly, get up to speed on, and we have a good chance. We're at home, so we'll see how we bounce back. But, yeah, definitely going to be a fun and exciting matchup on Sunday.
Yeah, that's going to be probably one of the best games of the weekend, I think, coming out. So, we'll see. I would like to wish you guys luck, but at the same time, no.
Hey, take it easy, man. Is this our game of the week though? By chance, will it be the Chiefs and the Niners? Are we going to be breaking this down from a defense?
Very well could be. Yeah, it very well could be. I'll have to take a look, but it definitely would be worth one of those. Looking forward to. And
right.
All right, so let's get to our main topic now. Moving on, we talked about it earlier. The power of sport. Scott and I are each going to kind of share our stories and the way sport, in particular football, has impacted our lives, both on the field and off the field. Again, at Atavus, our whole goal is, when it comes to the tackling realm, we want to make the game safer and make tacklers safer and also be more effective at the same time. But, even beyond that, we just want to make, our ultimate goal and mission is to make the game better and more enjoyable and make sure we, with numbers going down, things like that, there's no reason for that to happen. We understand the concern that the parents and players and coaches have, but it's a wonderful game if you can. There's a way to keep it safe and improve it, and that's what our goal is. And each of us has our own story here at Atavus. All played and coached at the highest level of the game. Played multiple sports, and each have our own story again of how sports has impacted us and gotten us to where we are today. So. I'll kind of go through my story and where I started. My story starts in youth. Even when I was born, I was a coach's kid growing up, and Dad was a high school coach for 30 plus years. He played college ball. He had NFL tryouts at a time. So grandfather was a high school coach for 30, 40 years. He played football at Wazoo. Uncle played college ball at Boise. And so it's pretty much in my blood that football from an early age. I was on the field in a baby carrier, and that's not figurative either. That's literal on the practice field in that. So that's been ingrained in me. And with that, I've been able to be exposed to a lot of really good opportunities throughout youth football and high school and college. And I was lucky enough as I got into high school for my dad to be my coach from youth and high school and on. And there are some great things that came out of it, being able to experience something like that with your family members and with your father on the field at the same time. But there are also some difficulties with that, and getting to college, a lot of long time friendships and things and experiences you face, but also some more. I think Scott and I both know some other difficulties and hurdles that you have to face as well. So, that's kind of my background. Football guy, played youth, high school, and college as on running back and safety, and seen both sides of the ball. I've transferred multiple times. I transferred from middle school, from one district in middle school to when I went into ninth grade, high school, to play for my dad, and then college I transferred twice for a couple reasons. So a lot of difficulties that come with that in itself, but I got a few points written out here I just kind of wanted to hit on. So I think there's positive and negatives that sports can have on you, and I think a lot of the time those negatives can be turned into positives that go beyond the game itself. So, but I'll start with my positives first. I think one of the biggest things is you have the on-field experiences, right? You have winning championships and games and those memories you have with your teammates on the field. Those other experiences, like once you get in college, going on a road trip, and because you're there, you get to experience something in that city that you wouldn't normally get to, and things like that. And there's a lot of those things that just make great memories for you. But the other thing it really gave me on the field, and led to afterwards, is it gives you something to work for, both physically and mentally. Being able to push yourself to your physical limit and try to improve yourself as best you can, but also, mentally knowing that you can kind of push past your limits in certain things, and improve yourself in those ways. And I think that kind of attitude can be taken off the field into life, into your career as well. And that work ethic is something I got from sports, especially. So that I see that in my career and work life here with you guys. I see it in my relationships and other aspects of life, even just making sure I keep up on my fitness and other things that are important in my life. And so that work ethic is something I really think was a positive that came from on the field that you really have to have. And the other thing that comes to mind for me is on the positive front is the relationships I created from within the game. I think most of my friends that I have, especially from college, came from football. And I transferred a couple times, so I got a couple friend groups at different schools for sure. But with transferring, even, I think you go to a new school, whether it's in middle school, high school, college, or whatnot. One of the biggest things you always hear is being able to make friends and relationships with people. And so you're not by yourself or anything like that. And I think one of the most powerful things that sports can do is that if you're involved with something like that, is if you're involved with a team, and this applies not just to football, but any sport. If you're involved with a team and you go to a new school, new team, you automatically start, because you're ingrained in it, you're involved with it, you start making friends and having an easier opportunity to make friends and become more accustomed to things, and kind of starting to settle into your new environment. So even though like with football, especially if you transfer in college, you're starting camp before school even starts, so it's a quick introduction into things and a lot of things going on. But being able to have that resource and those teammates to start making friends with right away, and versus maybe being on your own if you're not involved with sports or a club or anything like that. So a lot of those are the positives that for me came out of it, but almost the biggest ones for me were the negatives at times, and the positives that came out of those, and the obstacles you kind of have to overcome. And in high school for me, I was always the coach's kid, right? And there's a lot of things that come with that, both good and bad. I happen to be a really good, a very good player at my level in high school, especially all state and all league and records and whatnot. But and I earned that, too. And I think any coach kid knows the difficulties that come with those pressures. But a lot of outside pressures from others, possibly being jealous or thinking you only got it because you're the coach's kid, or a lot of these criticisms and stuff you face on a daily basis that at times I did. But it's not easy always. But I think one of the positives that came out of it for me was learning how to deal with outside criticism and things like that you really can't control. You can only do your best on the field, in the classroom and whatnot, as a student athlete. And there's always going to be criticism. In the NFL, it's always the media and people outside thinking they know more than you and whatnot, for players they see on the field, or coaches and things like that. And so for me in high school, going through that, definitely shifted my view of how to take that kind of criticism. Not from coaches or anything, but anyone outside the game, outside the team, and really refocusing it and almost taking it as a compliment, that if they're talking about you, it probably means there's something worth talking about. And in my case, doing something well. And so learning how to take that as a compliment and not get too worked up about it. If you get caught up in all the criticism and noise from the outside, then you lose focus of what really matters, and that's your teammates. That's your own goals, you say so, within the game, within your team, and the sport itself. So that was one of the major, most notable negative things that I had to face from being a coach's kid. But it turned out positive that I can take later on in life. And then for me, the other one is, like I said, I went through a couple transfers for a couple different reasons in college. Just situations didn't quite work out the way I wanted to. Both not only from like a on the field perspective within football, but also educationally. Wasn't quite getting after a while exactly what I was looking for. And, you kind of learn once again to take that criticism and go through all these obstacles and realize, and you're probably going to speak to this a little bit, similar situation, but, there's only certain things you can control. You can do your most, and then you have to make decisions based on that to try and overcome it and whatnot. And so I think one of the major things after I finally transferred and, kind of going what I went through in my previous schools, and I definitely had great experiences at times, but I wasn't getting everything I was looking for out of the experience from my previous schools, both educationally and on the field. Finished up at George Fox, and it completely shifted my viewpoint of the game. And I went from just focusing on am I getting enough playing time, or are we winning and stuff like that, to now my last year. Okay, I'm in a spot where I'm going to get the best education that I can for me. That's going to help me beyond football, but also I'm in the best spot to have just a good experience for my final year of football itself. So my focus completely changed, and obviously trying to get on the field, and I played a lot, obviously, and getting on the field, being as best you can, better yourself and your team is always important. But definitely took a lot of shifting my focus to realizing what's really important in life, and how winning and all that is very important, but just your experience within it and the experience sports can give you is almost just as important or more important, because sports only going to last for so long, right? But what you take out of it and you apply to your career and your life outside of it beyond for the next 30, 40, 60 years of life, I think those are the impacts sport can have, and that's really what I got out of my time really in high school and college. So a lot of these negative things at the time were hard to deal with, right? You work through them, you persist, you figure out the best option for yourself. And I think if you do so, there's a lot that can be learned that you take to better your situation, and then that can be taken beyond the field later on in life. So that's kind of how, again, I'll wrap it up. Give time, make sure Scott has enough time to go over his story. Again, I think it's a lot of good things to take for him as well. But that's where I got out of it. Both positive, a lot of positive things that came out of it. And like I said, some negative things that I think a lot of the times are able to be turned into positives that sports has really given me. And I don't think, honestly, without them, for good or bad, I would have had these experiences if I wasn't involved in sports, not even just football, but other sports as well. Throughout my time, I don't think I'd be in this job, where I'm at. I was a football company, right? Playing football definitely helps that background to do what we do here at Atavus. But also just, everything else that comes with the life lessons you learn. I don't think I would have necessarily gained or as quick as I would have in life without sports. So very, proud and, grateful for the experiences I've had, all of them to really shape who I am and where I'm at today. So that's my story and my experience with the power of sport and how it's affected me. But Scott, let us know, and you go over your story and just, what does the power of sport mean to you?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for sharing your story and your perspective, Jake. I think that's some powerful stuff. And yeah, I'm going to talk a lot about, taking some adversity and kind of flipping it and making it into a positive. So that's a lot of what I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes. But yeah, a lot of people probably don't know this. My first sport was actually ice hockey. So growing up in San Jose, California, you have the San Jose Sharks, right? And
yeah,
there's a lot of like in shopping malls, they have ice rinks. And I was always growing up, I knew how to skate, but I never ice skated. But it was, I was probably like maybe 8, 9. I was probably a little bit younger. It's my very first sport. But I was actually pretty damn good, man. And I was really good at skating, so it translated well. And but I always wanted to play football because my dad was a really good football player in college, and also my brother had a great career at my high school, but also went on to play at Cal Poly and have a really good career there as a defensive lineman, broke a lot of records and stuff. So he always inspired to have a career like that. But I was kind of sense when it came to like, football and all that. So I mainly just played ice hockey for like a year or two growing up, and then kind of took some years off in terms of organized sports. And my first organized sport was basketball. And that was like, if you ask me, basketball, I love, like, that's my second love. Like, I love football, but basketball is right up there. I'm a big basketball fan. So being able to play with my dad, who's my coach, my AAU coach at the time, that really kind of sparked my love for sports in general. And then around fifth grade, I finally was able to get onto a team and start playing organized football in San Jose, California. And at first, I was not really athletic, not really the best player. I was a center pulling guard. I was just kind of uncoordinated and trying to figure out a football thing. But as you stick with it, and I wanted to quit. There's times where like I don't want to be doing this. My dad always pushed me. My dad and my mom, but my dad in particular, always said, if you start something, you have to finish it. So I stood with it, and every year I got better and better. And then my freshman year, heading into my high school, really good athletes, really good team. Played on the JV team my freshman year, but we had a really good team play for a championship and had a really good success. Where my sophomore year, I was moved up to varsity to play tight end, offense. I never played, really wasn't a defensive player. I just played offense. And, we play in the state division finals. We lose in the semifinals to a really good school called Valley Christian at the time. But we went deep into the playoffs, and that kind of helped get my name out there because we had a lot of good athletes that played on my team. Like, I probably wasn't even the best athlete to come through that school. I definitely wasn't. But I had a lot of exposure from being on the field with those guys. So my junior year, I kind of came in, kind of touted, mainly making my name on the defensive end as a rush end, not really. I'm more off ball linebacker, Jake. Had 10 plus sacks with a new coach, 10 plus sacks, 100 plus tackles. Like I was doing it, turnovers, playing offense. I was doing a lot. So at the time though, I was just playing for the love of the game. I really wasn't even thinking about offers at the time. And then all of a sudden I started getting letters in the mail my junior year from like UCLA, Oregon State, a lot of Pac-12 schools. And then I go through the whole process. I'm trying to think, okay, I'm going to go to San Jose State or, Cal Poly like my brother. I'm just thinking like that. But I'm starting to get these bigger schools, and I started to have these conversations like, hey, can I do this? And my grades were luckily very, very good at the high school level. And that gave me an opportunity to kind of put myself, at somewhere like UW, where it was a top 10 school at the time and in the nation. So I really took that offer, and I was like my very first one. I didn't take any other visits, and I was like, no, I'm going to UW. I'm going to go to Seattle. I don't care about the weather. I'm just going to go play. So they wanted to play me at linebacker. I never played linebacker, off-ball linebacker in my life. But, I accepted the challenge. I was 180, Jake, 180 pounds, 175 pounds.
180 going into college?
Yep, I was 180 maybe. I did not lift weights. I didn't touch weights in high school, Jake. I just basically was just, using my talent. And I didn't – that's one thing I wish I could, like, look back on. I would have switched a little bit. But – as you know, playing the Pac-12, they put that size on you quick. So my freshman year, I actually I wasn't a gray shirt because I had a torn labrum. I was playing about 2 years with a torn labrum. I didn't even know what was going on, but I had a physical, and they found, my shoulder had separated so many times that the bones started to chip off in my shoulder. And we found that through my official visit. And I ended up almost having a gray shirt, but I was lucky to have my surgery pretty early and heal, where I came into that summer redshirting. Had a really good freshman year as a scout team player, redshirted, put on about 30 pounds of size. And I was going into that year, top of the depth chart, about to play, starting linebacker. But as we talked about, adversity always hits. And I think for me, I struggled as an 18-year-old, like trying to be a starter, not knowing the playbook, but also not really applying myself to the fullest. Like when it came to the weight room or the film room, I was still young. I needed things to learn, right? Mm-hmm. So getting handed the starting role, I wasn't necessarily ready. I'll be the first one to tell you. So I quickly, a lot of people don't know the story, but I kind of quickly dropped off the depth chart. And I was just mainly playing special teams my sophomore year. And all of a sudden, about week 6 into the season, Jake, I get pulled in by my position coach into his office. And he basically tells me that, he doesn't think I'll ever play here at University of Washington, and that he wants to help me transfer and find a school. And you have to think, going back then, I'm still 18, 19 years old. Everything's kind of spinning in my head. Like, okay, what am I about to say? Like, what am I going to do? But I was able to stay composed and be like, you know what? Let me talk about myself first. Now let me point fingers. And I think this is really big for a lot of young athletes, is not to, start blaming others. You got to take accountability. And you spoke about that. And I took accountability right there in that time. I said, hey, coach, listen, I get where you're coming from, but also I know I have so much more potential and things that I'm capable of doing here at Washington. Yeah, I can go play somewhere else, but I want to play here. And I said, I'm going to prove to you that I can play here. And you just give me one off season. And if I don't do it, then I'm going to be the first one to come into your office and pack my bags. But just believe that I'm going to do that. And, he was surprised. And I said, I betted on myself, Jake. And I ended up having a really good off season in camp, did everything I could. I became a really good player in terms of special teams, but also a backup player where, I had guys like Shaq Thompson and John Timu, a lot of vets that I got to play with and learn and soak up that knowledge from. And then the moral story is that staff ends up leaving the very next year. They leave, and now we have Coach Peterson come in as a junior. And I almost had like a new sense of, respect for the game and an almost new life. And Peterson really, gave me the opportunity to like kind of just spread my wings, not only from an academic perspective, but also not only from a football perspective, but academically and off the field. I learned so much from Peterson and his staff and Coach Gregory, my linebacker coach, that I really, to this day, I'm very grateful for. And they talk a lot about, the built for life things. And, some people, kind of talk down on it. But at the same time, I do truly believe in that, because at that time, you are only focused on football. But that's only going to carry you for the average athlete. It's only going to carry you so long, right, Jake? So being able to think about all three phases of life, being, again, my family, football, and academics, I was really able to spread my time and distribute those evenly and have a really good career my last 3 years at UW, but also get my academics right, where I became, a part of the Dean's List, which I think I mentioned before, but also won the Don James Award winner award my senior year. And that really helped in terms of, validating all my, my struggles throughout my career with injuries and playing time at points, and also, contemplating, transferring before the portal was even a thing back then. You basically had to kind of just stick it out or transfer, but you would lose time. And I didn't really want to do that. I knew that I wanted to stay in Washington. And I think that the moral of the story with that, Jake, is by me staying, I was able to stay in Washington and become a part of the Atavus team right after football got done, because, I was well connected with a lot of people that were invested in Atavus at the time. And they gave me an opportunity to come in and interview. And I really wanted to stay in the game of football. Maybe it was coaching. I didn't really know what it was yet, but I found my passion in Atavus, because really the best of both worlds, where you get to, go in and experience other places by traveling, meeting with NFL, college coaches, high school coaches all around, but also you kind of get that coaching aspect where you get the film analysis, but also you get to be on the field. And I found that was my strong suits in life. Like I really, thrive in those situations where I get to be around coaches. And I get a lot of energy from that. So at the end of the day, I was very blessed for my journey at Washington in terms of what it gave me and the foundation that it instilled in me. So if I wanted to leave one lasting note for like the young athletes or any athletes around there, females or males, that basically when adversity hits, you have to, trust the process and stick with it and stay true to yourself. Don't worry about what people are saying. Like Jake said, don't worry about what the naysayers say. You got to go out and prove them wrong. Okay. So that's what I learned early, or it took me a little bit. I would say, I'm not gonna say early. It took me a couple years to figure that out. But at the end of the day, it really paid off for me, and I'm really grateful for that adversity, because I think it made me a better man in the long term. So that was kind of my story of how the power of sport has impacted my life. But hopefully that can resonate with some other viewers out there, Jake.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. It's a great story for people to hear. And I think between us, there are some definite similarities, that experiences we've gone through. And obviously took different journeys to get there for a number of reasons, but a lot of good things to pull from that. A lot of good experiences and life lessons that, I think sports gives us in general, whether it's, football, baseball, basketball, volleyball, hockey, which this is the first time I'm hearing about this, that you were a hockey player.
Really? I was like, man, I was doing it, man, on the ice rink. I used to do like traditional skating, right? Because ice skating rinks were so big there in California when I was growing up. So everyone, you grew up how to skate, learning how to skate, like in a roller rink. Dance on Friday night, you would go with your family. It was, it's part of the scene. But yeah, ice hockey was blowing up at that time in the early 2000s. So that was my first organized sport. I was actually pretty damn good, Jake, if you can imagine. But I always used to get the I don't forget if it's a yellow card or whatever. A lot of penalties. So I figured I needed something a little bit more physical. So football was the right path for me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But yeah, a lot of good things I think anyone can take out of this and sports in general to take on later in life. So, to wrap things up again, like lots of news in the NFL and college this week, but overarching, the power sport is incredibly impactful in everyone's lives, both on and off the field. And anyone who has an opportunity to play a sport at any level, I recommend playing as many as you can. I think that only makes you a better player, a better athlete, and a better person, and stuff you can take out of it in general. Because every sport is different, has their own unique things that come with it. So, but yeah, that's the final words from us on this episode in the power of sport. And looking for next week, our preview, we're going to get back to more football specific stuff, and specifically what we do here at Atavus and our analytics and analysis piece. And we're going to get into what is it actually like for us, and what do we do to grade film, to analyze tackles. And so we're going to take an inside look into the analyst life, from how we grade film, what is our process, what are we looking for specifically, and what does a day in the life of an analyst look like on our busy weekends that we have at Atavus. So going to give you guys an inside or behind the scenes look at what we do and what really is the hard work that especially Scott and his crew of analysts puts in week in and week out throughout the season. So be on the lookout for that next week. Thank you all for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Love to hear what how the power of sport has affected you, the viewers, and anything you've taken from it. And let us know any other suggestions of episodes you may like to see going forward. We're always open to that, and I always have a lot of things going in our head and what we can do going next. So love to hear from you guys. Thank you for sitting in on this. Scott, thank you for sharing. Thanks for being again, joining me on this show this week, and we look forward to next week.
Yeah, for sure, Jake. Looking forward to it, man. Thanks for having me again.
Yep. Thank you all for watching, and until next week, we're out.
Peace out, man.